So, welcome along to the first panel of this week's kind of regional development program. First of all, big thanks to Maeve and Alex in the Offaly Arts Office for hosting tonight's session. Tonight's session is on funding, and basically we have kind of like four people that we're going to talk to about funding. I think two people. I think basically Alex and Maeve will probably be kind of like be swapping roles as we go along, and we've also got Alison and we've also got James. Welcome along, James and Alison. Alison, we'll start with you, Alison. Could you just kind of introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Certainly. Thanks, Jim. First of all, it's great to be able to connect with you all this evening. So thanks very much for that. My name's Alison Garrity. I'm head of grant programs here in Culture Ireland, and I've been here for about 3.5 years now. And prior to that, I was working on the grant supports for the arts sector during COVID. So the live performance support schemes, the music and entertainment business assistance schemes, SCAS, LLPPS, and various schemes like that. So following on from my work there, once those schemes concluded, I then joined Culture Ireland, which has a more international kind of view of those kinds of supports.
Excellent. Well, listen, we really appreciate you coming along, and especially the fact that you've got kind of like a knowledge, I suppose, over LPSS. We found on this particular program that LPSS gets mentioned a lot, both by participants and by the Arts Office. So fair play to you for all the hard work on that. So thank you very much for coming along, Alison. James, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself, please?
Hello, yeah, hi, I'm James Bingham. I'm the head of music and opera at the Arts Council. I've been in post here for about 6 months. Prior to that, I worked in opera for a number of different organisations, both in Ireland. I worked for Irish National Opera there, but before that, over in the UK for a number of different music organisations there as well. So the Arts Council is a public body which effectively its key role is the investment of public funds to arts organisations of all different kinds of art forms. I'm principally responsible for managing the portfolio of activity across music and opera. And that's music in all different kinds of genres. We're kind of all disciplines. With the one caveat, actually, I should say we don't fund trad art within my area. That's done by we have a mixed team who do all traditional arts under one form. But everything else, any other musical genre, falls under my remit. We fund both individual artists directly, as well as organisations, all the way down from people who've had no funding whatsoever beforehand and are kind of new to engaging with public funding in that way, all the way up to large scale organisations who receive several million each year and everything in between. So yeah, that's me.
Great stuff, James. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Really appreciate it. Maeve, could you kind of say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background before you got to the Offaly Arts Office?
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Maeve. I'm currently in my car in lovely Dangan. So I've been in this post since September. So before that, I was with Cork County Council. So I was there when the LLPPS program was rolled out and all of that. So my background would be more visual art, literature, venues and festivals. So I'm kind of hoping to learn as much as everyone else is at these things as well. So I would have been in Galway before Cork, so that's kind of where I would have gotten a lot of my kind of festivals experience and production experience and things like that. So I kind of picked up most of it kind of on the hoof, like everyone else nearly, I'd say. So for a long time, I was someone who was applying for grants, still am. We do at least one grant a week, it seems, at this point. Last week we had three. So I was the person kind of applying, and then maybe I was sitting on panels as an independent assessor. I've only done one for the Arts Council. Mostly it's kind of for other local authorities. So now we're in the position where we allocate funding, but we're also applying for it. And we kind of we have an advisory role as well on things.
Okay, excellent stuff. And thank you very much for that introduction then. And then Alex, you spoke a little bit about kind of like being grant support and grant aid available from Offaly County Council, but you didn't introduce yourself. So maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and where and how you landed at the Offaly Arts Office.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I should have actually. Yeah, well, yeah. My background is in theater and performing arts, and I worked in a venue for many years. So I worked in the Riverbank Arts Centre in Newbridge, where I was a program manager and director for a good while. So I have actually had a quite good experience working with a music sector in there, in particular with Music Network at a time as one of our main programming partners. But we did actually work as well, with New Music Dublin, and kind of, we did offer bursaries to artists as well throughout music artists throughout, COVID, and kind of our music program was quite a major part of the programming. So that's where kind of my experience is in the music industry, and kind of grants delivery, probably more from venue. And then I suppose moved. I was there for a long time, so I decided I need a change, and now I'm in Offaly.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well, listen,
so in Offaly, obviously my role is kind of supporting the delivery of the program, and um, I'm also kind of assessing grants as well for various partners and organizations. So that is kind of experience that I'm starting to kind of get more from in this job.
okay. That's great. Listen, we appreciate both of you kind of coming on to give the wisdom from Offaly. It takes the wisdom of Offaly, it takes two people to deliver, so that's great. Great to have you on board. Okay, so let's start. So just so everyone on the call knows as well, is if you have any questions or queries, you can either put them in the chat field as we go along, or else there will be time at the end for questions to direct to the whole panel or to any individuals as well. Like what I want each one of you now to do is just to go through and kind of give us a potted rundown on the grants and suppose the funding opportunities are available from your organizations. Starting with you, Alison. Just tell us a little bit about like what's available for acts from Culture Ireland, and also in terms of kind of like I suppose the levels. I mean, are you said basically kind of like it's about touring. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Great. Yeah. Well, first of all, Culture Ireland was established in 2005, and we operate as part of the Department of Culture, Communications and Sport. And our focus is on promoting and supporting Irish arts and artists on a global scale. So this year we're turning 21, which is lovely. So how do we provide those supports? We do it through three key means. Firstly, our regular grant program. So that's really about touring and that. We also have a Showcase and See Here program, and we also have other special initiatives. So maybe just to give you a quick kind of bit of information on our regular grant rounds, which might be of interest. So we accept applications for funding support from Irish artists and international presenters as well to present work at strategic international venues and festivals. So in 2026, we'll be operating 4 grant rounds, and our next grant round deadline is on the 5th of May, and that'll refer to activity from the 15th of August on. And there'll be another 2 grant rounds this year, and details of those are on our website. So we accept applications across all art forms. There is no minimum or maximum grant. We're looking at the shortfall that's displayed in each of the applications that are submitted. So there's no minimum and no maximum. And we take in our applications via our online application portal, again, which you can find on our website. So just quickly in relation to eligibility as well. So it must be in respect of an Irish professional artist, and only international events are supported. So that's outside the island of Ireland or outside the country in which the artist is based. So if an Irish artist is based in London, they can only apply for activity outside the UK. And the events must be accessible to open public audiences, and they need to be promoted widely. And crucially, fees must be payable to the artist as well. So in terms of the costs that are kind of eligible to claim, they would include travel and travel-related costs, freight costs, accommodation and subsistence costs, and where applicable, visa costs as well, which are considerable now.
Yeah.
So details of the eligibility criteria are on our website, and it's always worth kind of going through that. So I suppose if I could just touch on some final points in relation to making an application as well, what I would say is make sure that the application form is completed in full, and crucially, all the necessary supporting documentation is uploaded at the time of application as well. There's lots of really great stuff that people can upload with their application to support it. For instance, links to examples of performance, links to critical acclaim, official invites to events as well. And what I would say is that please do contact the team as early as possible if you have any questions at all in relation to the application process, or indeed if you want to run a particular scenario by us. We'd also say consider issues in relation to sustainability and how it relates to travel and the proposed activity, because we encourage joined up touring schedules. And I'd always say allow plenty of time in relation to submitting your applications. It's not an arduous process, but things happen, things go down, you lose your connections, etc. We also have a showcase program as well, and it supports artists to participate at industry showcase events, and it facilitates kind of network opportunities for artists to present work to the international presenters. And some examples of that would include Folk Alliance International, the Frankfurt Book Fair, Edinburgh Fringe, and also other events that are delivered by FMC in partnership with Culture Ireland as well. Lots of great events, Primavera, lots of other events there. And details of that calendar can be seen on our website as well. So you might ask, how would you get involved with that? I'd say keep an eye on our social media and FMC's social media as well. And again, look at the calendar that we have on our website. So that's a very potted view of some of the supports that we offer, Jim.
Yeah, that's excellent, Alison, because that's very clear as well. The fact that like where you come in is you support acts who are going abroad to do stuff.
Yes, right. Exactly. It's the international, it's costs related to the international presentation of work, not the production, not fees. It's the international presentation costs.
Excellent stuff. James, talk us a little bit about what the Arts Council can provide to artists starting out, like many of the artists here tonight.
Yeah, thanks. And it was really interesting to hear what Alison said. A lot of what's the principles that they have over in Culture Ireland are very similar in the sense of having the the correct guidelines in place. But to just kind of pick up on that last point there, in a way, we sort of the mirror image to the work happening there over the Arts Council. We deal exclusively with activity that is happening on the Republic of Ireland, and indeed lots of organisations who we work with are delivering performances abroad, and then they'll work with Culture Ireland to achieve those things. Our work is you really have to demonstrate that what's happening is there's a particular line we have in a lot of our guidelines around that you have to have significant benefit to the Republic of Ireland. So even if I don't know what your individual situations are, but if you happen to be based a part of the year kind of outside of Ireland itself, that's not necessarily doesn't necessarily exclude you, or if you yourself aren't Irish, but if you have a benefit, the work that you're doing has a benefit to the Republic of Ireland, then that's it really is work to be considered as funding of the Arts Council's remit, really. As I mentioned, we fund both organisations and artists. To zoom in on the artist side of things, which is I see there's a question coming. I'll come to you in a second there, Lee, if that's all right. In terms of the awards that we have available to artists, there's really two key areas to look at. One is the Agility Award, and the other one is bursaries. Bursary awards happen twice a year. Agility, I think, happens once a year. Don't quote me on that, actually. And the other thing to say is, with all our awards, please do look at the guidelines, because the final word in terms of how any award is administered is with the guidelines. If there's a typo in there that says everything has to be in red, put it in red. Because it's public money, that's not just simply us being obtuse. Because it's public money, it's really, really important that we follow these guidelines and that there is transparency around our processes and we're fair with individuals as much as possible. I'm sure you can appreciate, for very obvious reasons, really. So the Agility Award, that is principally open to people who may have not had any experience with Arts Council funding before. We've changed the guidelines very slightly this year. I think it's around the last 10 years or something. If you've not, as an individual, ever applied to the Arts Council before, you're eligible to apply for that. And really, that's about you buying time for yourself to develop your own practice and to buy time with mentors to work and develop your practice as musicians. Bursary is from 5,000 to 20,000, so it's a little bit more involved, and the process is that bit more involved. One thing to draw your attention to with both of those awards is that we have certain priorities that align with kind of broader music policy. And there's a number of genres that we've identified that we see as a priority for development. A lot of those genres, the kind of genres that First Music Contact operates in, the likes of electronic music, country music, popular music. So you may be working in those art forms yourselves already. So it's of particular significance to have a look. Right now, the Agility Award is open. And so you're welcome to apply for that, and all the details can be found. Bursary is not open presently, but there will be a round two later in the year. So the details of all those can be found on our website. And much like Alison said, we're a very friendly bunch in the Music and Opera team. So do please reach out. The email is musicandopera@artscouncil.ie. I'll put a link down there. But we appreciate these kinds of processes. If you've not done them before, can be a little bit daunting. There's a huge amount of paperwork. Those guidelines are really, really important that you read and understand, because if there's certain components that are missing from your applications, then it may mean we're unable to assess your application and we make it ineligible. But read those guidelines closely. If anything's unclear, don't hesitate to reach out, because we're there to help and support you guys as best as possible. Sorry, go on, Jim.
Sorry, James. I think it's worth kind of mentioning as well that like sometimes artists get quite frustrated by the levels of details or the amount of forms that have to be filled out. We're dealing with public money here, lads. Like this
Exactly.
is kind of like, this is the kind this is kind of like very, very serious stuff that, like, it's taxpayers' money, and therefore the processes have to be like above board and completely transparent.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, they can be somewhat daunting processes for that reason, and I appreciate that kind of paperwork can feel you want to be kind of developing your practice, but yeah, as Jim said, with it being public money. Will I come to this question that Leah's put in here, Jim?
Is the question, is it related to what you just said, or is it a different question?
Let me There's a few questions that have come in here. I'll come back to them. I'll have a read of them.
We'll leave the questions to the end. Yeah, let's leave the questions to the end then. That's
no problem.
Over to you now, Maeve, in Carron County, Offaly. And just, do you want to kind of like talk through kind of like the supports and funding available from your office to musicians in the county?
Yeah. Just checking, did Alex cover anything already?
Oh, she covered some of the area. If you just want to give a general recap, and then we can move on. Just because we had a lot of people joining at 6 o'clock as well.
Yeah, okay. So we do something called the Professional Artist Scheme. So that's for individual artists. And that's a bursary to support your practice. So, for example, you could be a singer-songwriter and you apply, and it might be a mix of you're looking for some funding for your own time to write and develop work. You could be using some of that money for studio time or kind of expenses towards kind of aspects of production, things like that. Offaly doesn't have a ton of money. Like, we're always trying to get more money for grants, and like that is kind of our main priority. So I think sometimes people are disappointed. It's like, oh yeah, you got a grant, but it's €1,000. So we're not really going to be the one that pays all your bills, unfortunately. The other thing that we do that people might be interested in, we've started doing a residency this year with Cowhouse Studios in Wexford, and that's for any art form. And it's a residency, fully paid residency in Wexford during the summer. And then we do other things that it's not performing or creating your own work, but it could become part of your practice. So we would do youth commissions where an artist would work collaboratively with a group. So last week a piece was launched. It was a composer working with some secondary school students in Clara, and they made an original piece, a soundscape. And then we would do things like Percent for Art. Now, a lot of people think Percent for Art is, metal sculptures on the side of the road. Yes, there are a lot of them. We're trying to move away from that. It's open to every art form. it can be temporary, permanent, it can be collaborative. It's quite open. So this year we're going to be putting together a new strategic plan. And we'll be kind of working on programming across the county. So with Percent for Art, it usually comes about from a development, so say a new housing estate. But we're kind of pooling the money together and making a program out of that. We would fund organisations that would work with musicians. So our main supports are to Esker Arts in Tullamore and Burr Theatre and Arts Centre in, surprise, Burr. There's also the Creative Places Eden Derry, and there is a bit of a music buzz in Eden Derry at the moment. The Arts Council is their main funder, but we would give them some support as well. On the other side of things, because, like, to say somebody is applying for an Arts Council bursary, we can maybe help you figure that out. Like, we can't write it for you, unfortunately. But we could have a call and maybe kind of talk things through with you. There's obviously no guarantee. And what I do know is things have gotten so competitive across all art forms. And even kind of art forms that would have maybe had lower subscribers in the past, like multidisciplinary, it's gone way up. But unfortunately, the budgets haven't gone up either.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to kind of echo what was said already, it can be frustrating. Putting in a lot of work and then maybe nothing comes out of it. But we do try and help. And like sometimes, like say a couple of weeks ago, we were asking people if they wanted to participate in kind of an artist in schools program. Now that might not be for everybody, but it could be, something that people are interested in, and it does kind of pay, it pays kind of on par with what you get paid in other counties. There's kind of a standard, so it could be a way of working in your area and being able to generate income from that.
Okay, excellent stuff. Just following on from what kind of like me and May said, I want to ask a question for all of you, and that's the kind of supposed to kind of like the disparity between the amount of people applying for funds and the amount of funds that are available. Could you start with you, Alison? Just give me a rough number about how many applications you got from the music sector last year and what your total budget was, just so people kind of like can kind of realize, how many people applied for funding, how many people got funding, and how much funding was available. If you haven't got the figures, just roughly, just to give people an idea, because I think people will be quite taken aback when they hear the numbers.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's first of all, in 2025, we supported over 5,500 artistic presentations in over 50 countries, and that was to audiences of almost 7 million. Now, this year, our budget is 8.8 million. And like in 2025, we would have received in the region of probably almost 1,000 applications across the regular grant rounds and those associated with our showcase programs as well. So it's a huge amount of applications, and it's growing year on year. We experienced something of a surge kind of in 2023. I think all organizations like us did, and it has continued to grow, and it's become quite competitive in nature now.
Right. Do you think kind of like, that's down to kind of just a growing awareness of what's available from Culture Ireland, or is it a growing awareness, or is it just the fact that more people as artists are looking for more ways to fund what they're doing and they're trying every opportunity? I'm just curious which you reckon it is.
I actually think it's a little bit of both, and I think COVID is a huge factor here as well. I think the art sector came from a period where it was the most awfulest of awful times, and they kind of came out with the spirit that they had the opportunity to perform again, and they became extremely engaged in the likes of supports that Culture Ireland or the Arts Council, I would imagine, would offer, also FMC as well. And they came back with a different, with almost renewed energy as such. And also the outreach that we do, more people are getting to know the supports that we provide as well. So the more that we kind of put that information out there, the more we'll get those apps in.
Okay, excellent stuff. James, same question to you. Like, just give us a rough rundown, if you can, about how much money has been allocated, how many people applied for it, how many projects were funded. from a music point of view?
Yeah, sure. So I have a budget of around 9 million within music specifically. Um, Now, within that, there is a combination of both funding for organisations and such as First Music Contact, and that they generate employment for artists. But in terms of awards that are available specifically for artists, so this is from last year in 2025, we had 1,113 applications in from artists alone. So that's not including any organisations. So across your bursaries and your agility awards, and out of those, only 113 were awarded. So it's 1 in 10 basically, and in fact less than that. So it's a really competitive market, and I think one of the more unpleasant parts of my job is seeing really excellent applications come through, where it's very hard to fault the work that's there. But simply due to the limitations of the funds that we have available, we're not able
Yeah.
to award those funds, and it can be quite disheartening for artists, I think, sometimes, because it may feel like it's some sort of comment that their work is not good enough, but often the work is really excellent and scores well, but there just simply isn't enough funds. And within that competitive context, we can't give it to everybody. So it's I'm afraid the statistics are somewhat brutal, but just to say, if you do get a rejection, please don't be disheartened. You're in the majority, unfortunately.
Right. And just so people are clear as well, James, are all those awards, are the bursaries and the agility award, are they awarded by a process involving assessors, or is it you deciding that?
Yeah, so it's in terms of the the agility award, I don't directly manage myself. You can look at exactly what the assessment process is for that. I can speak with a bit more authority around bursary, where effectively what we do with that is we bring in an external panel. Myself and my colleagues will produce notes on the assessments, and we will also shortlist applicants. So first, we run a process where we check if people are eligible, and often there are people who, they may have forgotten a piece of paperwork, and unfortunately, that means that they're not eligible for the award. Then a set of notes are presented, which are then handed over to a group of external panelists, and we try and assemble a panel that reflects the genres that are being represented. So if we see a particular genre represented there, we're going to make sure that we have people on the panel, and we've got a diversity of different kinds of expertise and backgrounds on there. But they're not people who work for the Arts Council. So they're presented with that information, and then we have usually 1 or 2 days where we go through those applications and we look at the criteria, and the panel come to an agreement with a chair as to who is funded that from there. So this external panel is coming in. That changes from award to award. I think that's quite a helpful process, because it does mean that it's not the same individuals who are looking at your awards every time. We really, as much as possible, try and go by those guidelines, because it's really important that we stick to those. But we have to also acknowledge that there are inherent biases. So having individuals come in externally, I think, helps bring fresh perspective to these awards. So that's how the process works. These are all documented as well in the guidelines, so you can see what happens end to end in all of our guidelines, who's going to be looking at your awards and where they go to.
Yeah, having been an assessor on Arts Council awards, the process is actually completely fair, completely, like, it's really clear. The directions to assessors about what to look for is really good. Chairperson was amazing. Like, the guidance that was involved was there. It is brutal, though. It is brutal. You're sitting there and you're deciding, well, actually, X, like, has got a score of 92%, but we haven't got enough money to basically award them. It's very brutal. So thanks for that kind of clearance. Like, just maybe kind of like, give us a sense then, Alex, from Offaly County Council, of of the kind of money that's involved there, and the number of applications you get as well, and what the kind of like the pass failure rates like.
We obviously don't have those kind of budgets in Offaly. We'd love to, but we don't. No. I think maybe this year for professional artist support, what did we have? 15,000?
15,000, yeah.
15,000 euro, yeah. We usually get about 10 to 15 applications from music sector. So, and usually they're I think this year they were all successful. Usually they are successful because the grants, as we said before, are not, these are not huge amounts. So we divide them in a way that we, sometimes it might not be the full amount that the person asked for, but they usually get something, and then they usually get close to whatever they ask. But I think because we do information sessions, we do stress, and we do stress that, and also in our guidelines, we have that very clearly marked that, the grants are from, like, say, 600 to €1,000, and you can't apply for more. I mean, your application probably will be, assessed, but you won't get more than, that €1,000. So we would probably encourage people from Offaly and artists from Offaly to apply, because chances are you will get funded. It's not, if the application is good and it has all fulfills all the criteria, and obviously there's an external panel as well assessing it, and it goes through a process. It's likely that you'll get some support, but obviously it is not huge if you're looking at, say, Arts Council bursary, and you're applying for 15,000. We will not be able to give those kind of awards in Offaly.
Okay, so I've a few more questions to ask here, and I can see there's a lot of questions coming in the chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask questions to each one of you in turn. So just like, starting say with kind of you, James, and like, and actually this could be for all of you. Maybe it's, what's the biggest mistake that artists make about funding? What's the biggest mistake? Is it leaving the initial serious stuff out? Is it applying for the wrong kind of fund, or is it missing the deadline by an hour?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
all of the above.
It sort of can be all of the above. I mean, I think the big thing to stress is, with all our awards, is read the guidelines, read the guidelines, read the guidelines. It's we have to stick to those, and there's whilst there are certain things that you may feel that it's important for you to get across, have a look at what we are assessing and what criteria you're looking for. And when you look at that criteria, are you articulating all those questions effectively, and how you answer them, like you would with a job application for somewhere, and they're looking for the kind of the credentials of your organization, of what your kind of your skill sets are. You want to be answering all of those things. Just ensure that those things are satisfied, so you can effectively give us as little of an excuse not to fund you as possible, really. The other thing as well, I would say, is bear in mind that we are an all genre music department. So we try as best as possible to have as broad an expertise, but we're doing everything from funding, Baroque specialist viol players and all that, all the way through to heavy metal bands. So the range of expertise required to assess those is very, very broad. So do not necessarily assume that we will know exactly who you're talking about when you refer to people. Try as much as possible to evidence those things, and again to give total clarity. But I think the most painful thing is when there's a certain bit of paperwork you think, oh, it doesn't necessarily apply to me. It does apply to you. Just make sure that you include all those things. And if you're not sure, email us.
Okay, excellent. Alison, question for you then. Like, in terms of, like, how do you judge the success of giving funds to an artist? Is it in terms of media coverage they get? Is it in terms of mentions they get? Or is it in terms of some other metrics that you and people at Culture Ireland kind of use to decide that?
Well, Jim, there's a couple of things that we kind of look at. First of all, we look to see, did the event actually take place, right? So we're communicating with our applicant and that, and there can be a lot of to and fro, which is brilliant. And often they'll give us little updates throughout the tour, which we love to hear, because it's just lovely to see. After the event has kind of finished, every grantee needs to complete a post-event report form for us. Now, the purpose of that form is we gather information in relation to the kind of audiences they had, the type of audience they had, the kind of connections that they made. That's really important to us as well. And also what the follow-up actions will be from that. So are there opportunities that have emerged from these dates that they've actually toured with? So that's the kind of thing there that we will be looking at. And from an administration point of view, it'll be the submission of all the information we need in order to make payment.
Okay. Maeve and Alex, question for you then, in terms of the Arts Office. What would you like to see more of in terms of applications?
Will I go first?
Yeah, yeah.
I think like for more people to know that they can apply. So if you are kind of making original work, you more than likely are eligible. Sometimes people think, oh, you know, I need to fulfill certain criteria. A lot of times you don't. If you see yourself as a professional musician making original work, then yeah, talk to us. And I think we'd like to see more of, like, you're always looking for ambition. Now I know you can only be so ambitious with our limited amount of funding. And being ambitious doesn't necessarily mean, you know, I want to do a world tour for the next 2 years, but that you're ambitious in your creativity, and you're able to articulate that. So, you know, it could be that it's maybe a very modest proposal that you're sending into us, but it's you can see that the creativity level is quite ambitious, and like the way someone might be able to show that is just kind of taking enough time to maybe work out what your proposal is, what you're actually asking for, and showing us what you've done before, or if there's works in progress, figuring out the best way of showing that.
Cool. Same question then to you, Alex. You know, what kind of applications you'd like to see more of?
I think we probably didn't mention that there is an option. I mean, no, we did mention that there's other streams that can fund, you know, certain aspects of your practice, like commissions or like working in education or like. But there's also Artact Award, which is a kind of a bigger project, and that's kind of like you could apply for working with a band or a kind of orchestra or a, you know, a string quartet, or, you know, you could apply for a project, you know. So that is another thing that, you know, there's a way of, I suppose, try, you know, you can find a way to find funding for your projects, not necessarily looking just at practice in a straight line, if you know what I mean. And that's probably applicable as well to Agility Award of other awards in the Arts Council as well. In that, you know, there's ways to look at developing your practice through other avenues. And I know you know, things like recording your own EP, like, or, you know, having time to work in a studio or just at home on something is really important, and that's what we want to fund if we can. But we also have a remit to kind of, I suppose, develop a program and develop audiences as well at the same time. So working kind of towards audiences, which RSAC would be kind of presentation network at some point, is also important. And I think, you know, if again, we do clinics and information about that. So if anybody's interested in working on a project, just come to us and chat to us about that as well, and we'll give you advice, and we'll see if this is something that will be eligible. And that allows to collaborate with other people, you know. So that is a really good way of actually networking and finding people to work with, maybe not, who are not just directly inside your circle, you know.
Cool. I've one last question because there's very few questions coming in now on the chat. So I've one last question, and that's basically kind of like, do you ever think, any of you ever think that, I know basically that all the applications are open to everyone. Do you ever think there will come a day when funding will be some funding will be ring fenced for new applicants, for people who haven't been funded before? And you want to take that, James or Alison, Maeve?
Yeah, I can take that. I mean, effectively, that's what Agility Award is. So I would say today. um, yeah, there is presently. I mean, the guidelines have loosened very slightly now, because I think it's within 10 years or something. It was, you know, first time applicants only, but yeah, no, we have that funding is ring fenced for that purpose.
Excellent. What about you, Alison? Is there anything from Culture Ireland which is ring fenced for first time applicants?
Not at the moment. We kind of tend to look at the opportunity that's being put forward for the put forward for the artist, as opposed to what stage of their career they're in. So it could be an emerging artist, or sometimes quite an established artist, but it's about the opportunity and the support that we can provide in the context of the eligibility criteria.
Cool. And then Maeve and like for about Offaly then, what you think is there some of your funding kind of ring fenced and kept for like first time applicants?
No, we don't do any like emerging awards or anything like that. Like you could apply and, it's the first time you've ever applied for anything. You might be kind of just making music for a couple of years and you might be competing against, a band that have been on the go for 40 years and you might get it over them because you have a stronger application. So it's like for us, our main objective is to support artists in Offaly. We don't kind of put a limit on it. Now, that's not to say, in a few years' time, we might be able to do an emerging artist award or something like that, but it's not on the cards at the moment.
Okay. And then one last question for me, and this is awfully related as well, Alex. Do you offer sort of workshops for people who are applying for funding like you mean either in terms of roughly kind of council or arts council or kind of like culture around just kind of like a how to go. I know some kind of councils offer that kind of like that kind of workshop facility.
It wouldn't be a workshop, but it's an information session. So
That's
like yeah, so like we would workshop is probably a bit too it would be too prescriptive, if you know what I mean.
cool.
And where we just organize our information sessions. So we did one in person and one online for last round of grants, and we're going to be doing one for Culture Night now soon enough in about I think 3 to 4 weeks. We probably do an online one for Culture Night grants. And then again, when the next round of grants comes along, we will be doing them probably in more venues, kind of to be more accessible. Because we did one in Esquire, so it's Tullamore based. But I think it was, we got a very good feedback that it was really needed. So we probably extend that a little bit.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Alex. So I'm going to get to the questions now from the audience. Question here from Leah for James. And what's the Arts Council looking for in terms of music? Is alternative pop music okay? They've applied for 3 Arts Council grants, including 2 Agility Awards. Not sure what else they could do to make the application stronger.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Leah. And I'm sorry to hear you've been unsuccessful in the past. I do appreciate that it is it's a very challenging process, and I hope, as I sort of articulated before, that doesn't necessarily mean that you were. There's a comment on your work specifically. It's more just the limitations of the competitive nature of the award. In terms of what they're looking for music, I would look at both in terms of bursary and agility to look at what our priorities are. There's the priority sections in both of those. And alternative pop music absolutely would fall within there. There's no genre, as I said beforehand, which is precluded. And in fact, alternative pop would fall under one of those areas that certainly we're looking to develop more of, really. So yeah, look at those priorities and try and see how you can link what you're doing to those priorities. That will certainly help your award.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thanks, James. How do I see the priority areas?
On the guidelines, so if you the link I supplied there
Oh, yeah.
to the Agility Award, there's a
Sorry.
PDF that you can click on through there, and there should be priorities about halfway down the document. Yeah, there is a section
Mhm.
there. If you need help finding it, do email us and we can point you in the right direction.
Thanks, James. Thank you.
And just
No
so you know,
problem.
James' email is there on the chat as well. Question here from Rue Elizabeth. Are there criteria related to level for this support? They're releasing their debut EP and starting to build a following in Ireland. Would love to start that growth in the UK too. I assume that question then probably has to do kind of like me and Maeve and Alex with sort of like, basically kind of like it's really down to the application. If the application is strong enough, like, it's basically they could be applying for an EP, they could be applying for a tour, they could be applying for mentoring, and it comes down to how strong that application is, one, and two, if the money is available.
Do you want me to take this, Jim, or?
I don't mind. Like, I think it's more. I'm not sure who that aimed. It wasn't aimed at anyone in particular. So I'm just kind of throwing it out to the floor. I suppose it kind of relates to all of you actually. Like in terms of that criteria, is it more about kind of like the application? One, a strong application, and two, that the application meets all the sort of like the ticks all the boxes you need in terms of paperwork, in terms of kind of like all the backup documentation you need, plans, things like that.
Just to jump in there, Jim, on that, just in relation to the kind of end part of that question about the presentation of work in the UK. So, in terms of Culture Ireland funding, that's what we'll be looking at. We'd be looking at the presentation costs. However, you'd have to have gigs booked. So, we'll be looking for evidence and confirmation of the actual gigs that have been booked. So, that must be in place before you can apply, if that's.
Excellent. So Rue Elizabeth kind of passed in as well, saying basically the questions answered earlier on. So thank you. So thank you very much for that. Question here from Lavina Waldron. When it comes to band applications, does one person apply for a grant, bursary with their own paperwork, or is there space for band paperwork, shared invoices, shared credits, etc.? Good question.
In terms of Arts Council funding there, I would just say that I would need to stress, because this does come up quite often, that the bursary and the agility are only for individual artists. So you just need to be mindful of that. We can't accept an application for a band. It's about the development of you as an individual. What you might want to look at is we have a project award, which both individuals and organizations can apply for. It's very competitive, and there are strands within that as well for recording. That would be, in terms of that kind of work, would be more appropriate for bands, but it's often something that trips people up. They think they can apply as a band, but no, this is for your development as an individual.
Cool, excellent. Question here then from Leah as well about alternative methods of funding music. They've been applying for grants and successes since 2024. I still haven't been able to fund an EP. Bursary from Westmeath County Council, for which we're grateful. We've only funded 1.5 songs. What are we supposed to do? Because I kind of give up music due to financial difficulty. That really comes down to, Claire, like, I mean, not enough money and too many artists, doesn't it, James? Because I think your stat earlier on that only 1 in 10 applications last year were funded is quite bleak in many ways.
It is, unfortunately, yeah.
I mean, I'd like it. I think as well that music isn't the only kind of like art form in this regard, and I don't even think that this is something that is necessarily a present day problem. The artist Dorothy Cross was talking on the radio with Brendan O'Connor on Sunday on RT Radio 1 about how she started and how like her funding came from kind of like, I mean, a local company operator and director in kind of like, I mean, in Cork, because she wasn't getting any money at that stage from the Arts Council or anyone else. So it sounds like something that unfortunately is kind of like just a case of not enough money and too many applications.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great.
Jim, could I jump in there for a sec?
Of course you can, Stevie.
Just to say, Leah, first of all, sorry to hear that you're trying to get that over the line. I've been there definitely, and I've released music with my own band a good couple of times independently, and yeah, it's very difficult. There's a lot of work in it. It costs a lot of money. Maybe 2 things I would suggest is maybe book in for a consultancy with James here at First Music Contact. Just James can just have a chat with you if you haven't already.
I did, but it was like a year ago, so I think I'm due another one. Yeah.
Yeah. No harm. And then I'm sure you might have looked at all these types of other options as well, but just I don't like using the term portfolio career, but it's unfortunately what most musicians are now. We all have about 3 or 4 jobs now, so there are other avenues of potential revenue to look at purely from an artist point of view. So whether it's merch, whether it's gigging, whether it's starting a Patreon, a Substack, all these little things. And generally, if you find something that you enjoy doing, if you don't like doing Substack or Patreon, I wouldn't advise doing it because it's just going to stress you out. But if you find something that you like doing, generally you can build that up to a point where people will, hopefully you'll build a fan base for that. And you can start to generate income, even if it's only a little bit each month, it'll all help. So I would just say, don't be disheartened. I fully hear you. I understand.
Yeah.
But you will get there. And the fact that you're on this call and you're trying it says a lot as about you as an artist.
I keep saying I've given up, but I haven't. But I feel it's not that I've given up, but like I just don't have time because all of my time and energy goes on my actual job. Like I was actually lucky to get off work. I have to go now in a few minutes at 7. So like the applications are so hard as well because like they take up so much time, and that's why it's kind of like, oh, like is there a point, if the odds are so low when it's taking up so much of my time and energy and like my soul, do you know what I mean? Because every rejection like kills me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, and I also know that like it's totally to do with funding. Like, I mean, if we put all the money, and I know this is being recorded, I don't mind that. If we put all the money that we put into greyhound racing into the arts, wow, what a
Yeah,
country we would have.
definitely.
Well,
But yeah,
there's a message there. There's a message there right now, Leah, from Rue Elizabeth, who's quite happy to help you with applications. So might be an idea to kind of hook up with them and have a chat with them and see what can be done. And the other thing to bear in mind is, and one thing is as well, like it is incredibly disheartening, and it could be very disheartening as well when you hear of other people getting the application because you're thinking like, I mean, oh well, why are they getting it and why am I not getting it?
Mm,
And it's just like it's often a case of just having to switch off from all of that, and
yeah,
actually, it's very hard, and especially I think now because everything is kind of like, oh, everything's on social, everyone's kind of talking about this, that, and the other, and you're thinking like, hang on a second, I can barely kind of draw a breath here. Why am I not getting a break? It is very difficult. But Stevie just said the fact that you're able to come on this call and talk about it, like, shows kind of like, I mean, to my mind, a level of gumption and a level of kind of ambition that you probably don't realize you have yourself.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
and if I
There's,
can
there's
jump
a
in,
question here. There's a question here I missed earlier on, and I'm sorry. Very apologies to Lavina for this, and I hadn't seen it. It's kind of what qualifies as a professional artist. Would it be IMRO members, or is it something more specific or official needed? We mentioned professional artists was mentioned at some stage in tonight. I'm not sure who mentioned it. It might have been James. I'm not sure who mentioned it. Maybe whoever mentioned it could actually just define it a little bit more. Jesus, maybe it's
sure.
getting very dark where you are.
I know, like I need to like have a tractor drive by or something so you can see me.
There's one behind you
Um,
now.
I mentioned before, like in the county council context, and just to reiterate that, like with the different funders that are here online, we all have different criteria and guidelines. But for Offaly, it's if you say that you are professional, we will believe you. Um, and it's you might not have ever made a penny out of being a musician before in your life, but if you see yourself as a musician, then that's grand. Um, and then with other ones, it might be different. So if other people want to jump in.
Well, in terms of the Arts Council and its definition, we have actually both the Agility and the Bursary Awards. There's definitions on what constitutes a professional artist. And so you can see that within the guidelines. So again, read the guidelines. But it's the lines are, considered their arts practice to be their main professional career, is recognized by their peers as a professional practicing artist. So they're quite broad in terms of what those things are. But yeah, just be mindful of those in terms of the definitions.
Okay. There's just an observation here from Wayne. He says that personally, the biggest struggle he finds in terms of getting music out there as an independent musician is the opportunity to play at venues and festivals. The festivals who they rely on local talent and original acts to start off now discard them a lot or ignore them. So that's kind of, I think that would be common to every single county we'll be in. The same thing kind of happening, that they see a lot of festivals who will rely on kind of like the blood, sweat, and tears of kind of like bands to begin and to build up themselves. It tends to kind of discard them as they move on. So thank you all very much for your time tonight. Like, especially big thanks to Alison, to James, to Alex, and to Maeve in the bog in Offaly. Thank you all so much for kind of coming along tonight and actually kind of like sharing your insights with us. Thank you so much to all the participants tonight for basically kind of like their questions and their honesty and kind of just basically sharing the night with us. Tomorrow night we are in Longford and we'll be talking about management. So the way to operate tomorrow night is that from 5 to 6 it'll be the intro. You've all seen the intro already. It's the exact same. It's me and Stevie talking, Stevie being the kind guru he is, me cracking jokes, and that's kind of 5 to 6. But from 6 to 7 tomorrow, it'll be the management panel. So please feel free to join us for that because there'll be a lot of insights there. I'm going to hand you over now to Stevie, who's going to, like me, send us all home smiling. Stevie.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And again, just thanks to all our panelists, especially Maeve in the car. Fair play. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the input from everyone. Leah, I saw your message there, just in case anyone didn't see it. Leah said that she is an organizer of a festival and they prioritize local artists. So that's in the chat there if anybody wants to take a look at that.
Uh, sorry, it's called Creelar. It's in Athlone. It's taking place next month. I forget the exact dates, end of April. The lineup's already done, unfortunately, but I would recommend coming along just to network and just to see what's happening because I definitely really push for it. It's really important for us to platform local artists. So we do have artists from around the Midlands performing. So yeah, it might be just a nice way to meet fellow musicians from around the Midlands, and definitely apply next year when the applications open again. Thanks a million.
Yeah, thank you. That's brilliant. Really appreciate it.
Just to add there as well, I mean, I can't speak for my fellow panelists, but just to make clear, Leo, we do also fund festivals at the Arts Council, so there are funding channels available there as well to consider. Again, it's more work to look at those particular considerations, but just to say that they are available.
Brilliant. Thanks, James. So look, we are just coming up to 7 now. Thanks so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. We'll see you all tomorrow. As Jim said, we have management tomorrow. On Wednesday, we have agents and touring. And on Thursday, we have a brilliant workshop with Kieran from Warner Music Ireland on social media and audience engagement. So we'll see you all during the week. Thanks again to everyone, and have a good evening.
Well, I find
Hi, everybody.
one last word from me just before you go. Just basically kind of do a copy and paste on the chat, because there's a lot of information in there as well. That's good to get. So we'll give you kind of like 10 seconds before we close it off.
Yeah.
Just do a copy and paste on the chat so you have all that information as well. And again, big thanks to Stevie and all of First Music Contact for putting this on. Thanks again to kind of like to Alison, to James, to Alex, and to May for kind of joining us. Thanks a million though to all of you as well, because if it wasn't for all of you, it's just me, Stevie, and the 4 panelists talking to one another for the last hour. So thank you all very much for coming along. Hopefully we see you all tomorrow night in Longford. Thank you.